Tonight, an NBC Bay Area news special. We investigate Sysco's dirty secret.
I come to a fence and I look at it and I'm like, this is a frickin' storage shed.
Sysco Corporation, the world's largest food distributor, hid a dirty secret.
The public needs to know where their food is coming from.
Exposed by a year-long NBC Bay Area investigation.
Here goes the pork.
This is a box of pork that was in a shed in Concord for 5 hours before it came here to this restaurant.
It started in California.
How dare you hurt the farmers in California?
Tonight, how the story unfolded internationally.
Are you storing food in these sheds?
Are we?
And the sweeping changes across the food industry.
This came to light because of your sterling investigation.
Here's NBC Bay Area investigative reporter Vicky Nguyen.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. In the next half hour, we investigate how your food is handled from farm to table. Tonight, we'll show you how we uncovered the illegal actions of the world's largest food distributor, Sysco Corporation. Our reports resulted in a landmark settlement to better protect public health. It all started with a whistleblower who wanted to expose Sysco's dirty secret. But first, more on the company at the center of our story.
580 million shares, I think it is.
Shares surging, talking about Sysco, SYSCO.
Sysco Corporation is a publicly traded company.
Sysco, the food service distributor.
With annual sales of $44 billion in 2013. Sysco provides food to more than 400,000 clients across North America.
The good things come from Sysco.
After buying its largest competitor, U.S. Foods, Sysco Corporation secured its foothold as an industry giant, delivering food everywhere. From restaurants and hotels to hospitals and schools, Sysco even supplies food for the diner here at NBC Bay Area. If you've ever eaten at a restaurant, you've probably eaten Sysco food.
Sysco provides every type of food that you could think of.
Last summer, insiders from across the country broke their silence.
It was nasty.
Some asking to be disguised for fear of retaliation.
It had always been the method of operation.
They all came forward to reveal a cost-cutting measure used by Sysco employees that we couldn't believe until we saw it ourselves. For weeks, we kept cameras on outdoor sheds across Northern California. They were all rented by Sysco Corporation, and they were all used to store perishable food, including what we saw at this shed in Concord. It's 4:30 on a Tuesday morning. Our cameras were rolling as this Sysco delivery truck arrived. Concord Self-Storage was the driver's first stop of the day. Watch as he unloads box after box, carrying bread, lettuce, cheese, and raw pork.
These are storage facilities that you or I would take our unwanted items and store them because we don't even want them in our house.
The sun is just blaring down on that food.
We watched as the food sat in the shed for hours until Sysco salesmen picked it up in their personal cars and delivered it to customers.
And we delivered to hospitals, schools, jails, daycare, anywhere.
Here goes the pork.
5 hours after the pre-dawn drop-off, this salesman loaded a case of butcher's block pork into his trunk.
And the bread.
We followed that pork from the back of his car to the back of this restaurant. The pattern was the same at every shed we observed.
Are any of them like temperature controlled or anything? They're all just like outdoor sheds?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not airtight, so.
It happened up to 6 days a week, including hot days when we measured the temperature inside a storage unit at 81 degrees.
What about storing like dry goods or foods or anything like that?
Unacceptable, yeah. No food of any kind, no water at all.
That's the policy at most storage facilities, according to the staff.
How come?
Because rodents will get into there. Yeah, we've had circumstances where people stored Windex bottles and rodents have actually chewed through the plastic bottles to get into the Windex.
Still, that didn't stop Sysco from keeping raw chicken, beef, vegetables, and milk on the floor inside these sheds. In some cases, just a few feet from mouse traps.
They've got a mouse issue? No, that's just preventative maintenance. We haven't caught one in about a year.
It wasn't just Concord. We were tipped off about these sheds in San Jose, too. You can see they're outside, open to the public, and there's no refrigeration. We wanted to know if what we saw was just an isolated example or if it was part of a much bigger problem. To find out, we decided to rent our own storage shed. Here's where we got lucky. There was one unit available almost directly across from the storage unit Sysco had been renting for years. We set up cameras and watched as the big rigs rolled in.
In San Jose, we spotted this saleswoman. She picked up food after it was kept for 3 hours in a shed. Boxes of raw chicken, butter, and produce. But she didn't deliver it right away. She picked up a friend instead. They made a Starbucks stop, then hit the road. Food still in the trunk, she finally heads to the snack bar at this kids' swim center. We don't know if this was her final stop, but remember, she was carrying chicken, butter, and produce, food that at this point hadn't been refrigerated for more than 4 hours.
I said, well, that's going on here. And
from Utah to Tennessee, New York to D.C., sources told us about sheds operated by Sysco nationwide, and we learned it went beyond the U.S. Sources say Sysco also used sheds throughout Canada.
Coming up, why Sysco was storing food like this.
I'm not allowed to talk, sorry.
NBC Bay Area cameras move in as Sysco is caught in the act.
You work for Sysco, right?
I do.
Plus,
we found a lot of rodent droppings that were present.
What food inspectors found that sparked action across North America.
We return now to our in-depth look at Sysco's dirty secret. I'm Vicky Nguyen. Before the break, we showed you Sysco employees storing fresh food in these outdoor, unrefrigerated sheds, food destined for restaurants and hotels. After weeks of undercover surveillance, it was time to get answers. We're just wondering, are you storing food in these sheds?
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not allowed to talk, sorry.
This part of the investigation was tricky. We knew we wanted to approach Sysco employees as they were picking up the food and ask them why Sysco was doing this. We also figured we had just one shot. So based on our surveillance, this was happening most often in Concord and here in San Jose. Producer Kevin Nias went to Concord and I approached the employee who showed up here. Can you tell us where this stuff is going?
He didn't have much to say before shutting the shed and taking off. But in Concord,
you work for Sysco, right?
I do.
The Sysco employee tried to explain.
It's a common thing, though. I mean, because, it's food distribution.
Yeah, we saw you coming from an outdoor shed to take the food here. Do you guys normally do that?
We do it for like paper products and, shelf-stable food.
At first, he told us the sheds were only used for non-perishable food, not foods that could spoil.
We've seen you guys carry meat, we've seen you carry pork, cheese, other perishable items, things that have been sitting there for as long as 5 hours. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
He confirmed what many other sources nationwide had said. This was a widespread and long-standing practice at Sysco.
Well, I've only been here 10 years, and we've had it for those 10 years.
Throughout our investigation, Sysco declined our request to be interviewed. But after we revealed what our hidden cameras saw, the company issued a press release. Sysco acknowledged the public health concerns and announced the immediate closure of all of its sheds across the U.S. and Canada. The action made international headlines. CEO Bill Delaney said, "We deeply regret the concern created by our lapse in complying with our policies."
We begin with an NBC Bay Area exclusive.
What's more, our reports prompted the USDA to investigate Sysco facilities nationwide. North of the border, food inspectors from 3 agencies in Canada launched their own investigation.
He's getting the steaks. He's getting the steaks.
Nowhere were inspectors more active than California.
Those facilities were not registered.
Patrick Kennelly is the food safety chief for the California Department of Public Health.
There is a huge breakdown in their food safety program.
He says after we contacted his department, inspectors immediately descended on Sysco's sheds.
At some point in time, rodents had been in there, which of course rodents carry a lot of disease, and that becomes a prime concern for transmission of disease from the rodent to the food product.
And remember, the stakes for you and your family are high. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 48 million people get sick in the U.S. each year from eating bad food. 3,000 people die.
And I was actually very shocked, especially with a company of this size.
Inspectors combed through 4 years of Sysco's records. They found Sysco had 25 unregistered drop sites in California, spanning from Sacramento to San Diego. Not a single shed was licensed to store food. More than 400,000 food items were stored illegally.
Why would a company like Sysco cut corners like this?
I think this became, based on what we're seeing so far, a little bit of a runaway train.
Sources say the sheds were used to save money so Sysco could deliver more orders to more customers. They were a convenient pit stop that allowed the expensive refrigerated big rigs to make fewer deliveries, leaving it up to individual salespeople to take the food to their customers on their time.
They're always cutting corners. They're always trying to get over on the system.
We learned Sysco's cost-cutting measure could end up costing Sysco big.
Still ahead.
How dare you?
Outraged lawmakers called for changes, and regulators cracked down with a massive fine that's one for the history books.
This came to light because of your sterling investigation. None of us would have known about it.
Plus, the effects on the entire food industry.
Good evening, I'm Vicky Nguyen. You're watching We Investigate, Sysco's dirty secret. Earlier, we showed you how our surveillance cameras captured the world's largest food supplier storing raw food in dirty, unrefrigerated sheds before delivering it to unsuspecting customers. It was an egregious violation of the public's trust and the state's health code. It prompted regulators to move in, and it stunned Sysco's clients.
It's pretty scary.
Jeff Griffith-Jones is in charge of the Almaden Valley Athletic Club. We showed him video exposing how Sysco was delivering food to its clients, including his popular snack bar.
Raw chicken, also sitting there for hours outside on the ground.
Here's an example of what our surveillance exposed. Raw chicken sitting in unrefrigerated sheds alongside steaks and milk in San Jose. This is perishable food that can breed deadly bacteria if improperly stored. Food that we followed as it was delivered by Sysco salespeople after it sat in outdoor sheds, sometimes as long as 5 hours.
Going into the trunk of somebody's car.
He says the club would strongly reconsider its relationship with Sysco after he saw the video.
Because of the regular inspections that we have, we play it as safe as possible. Fortunately, no, we haven't had any complaints.
But he wasn't the only customer who was surprised to see what was happening to perishable food before it got to their kitchen.
This is a box of pork that was in a shed in Concord for 5 hours before it came here to this restaurant.
Really?
Managers at the Tower Grill in Concord reacted the way we did.
That's horrible.
I'm judging by your reaction, you didn't know this was happening?
No, not at all. We'll see, because, we definitely don't, practice that here.
Restaurant managers weren't the only ones outraged to learn their food was coming from here. Sysco admitted it used sheds beyond what we found. But then the question became, who would hold Sysco accountable at the next level?
It violates the trust of the consumer.
Congressman Sam Farr represents California's Central Coast. He also sits on the House subcommittee that oversees food safety regulation. He spoke to us via satellite from Washington, D.C. after seeing our reports.
Well, I appreciate the investigative reporting that went on here. This is really important. And what really struck me is how dare you? How dare you hurt the farmers in California?
He says our investigation exposed a major flaw in food handling practices by a company that should be an industry leader.
And I think this is going to require the transportation industry and the handling industry to upgrade those laws and protocols. And if they won't do it themselves, then government will do it for them.
Sysco is being held accountable.
Santa Clara County Deputy District Attorney Fran Allen led the task force that brought a consumer protection lawsuit against Sysco.
This came to light because of your sterling investigation.
In the complaint, district attorneys from 10 counties throughout California alleged Sysco violated state laws for how the company stored and transported food, and that it falsely advertised the safety of its food.
This is a major health issue.
Assistant DA Kelly Walker represents Santa Cruz County.
What did you think when you saw a company of Sysco's magnitude handling food in this way?
Well, I was appalled. I mean, I'm a consumer. I go to restaurants.
This is a frickin' storage shed.
1 year after our investigation began, Sysco agreed to settle for $19.4 million. It's one of the largest consumer settlements in California history.
Our goal is to see that the conduct has stopped and to see that the consumer is protected.
You took it and you did a great undercover investigation, which really made our job much easier.
We saw that this was really a very common practice.
Patrick Kennelly is the state's food safety chief.
Essentially, what we were seeing was not an anomaly.
What you were seeing does not appear to be an anomaly. From all of the interviews we did, the information that we were provided by marketing associates and drivers was very consistent, that this has been a long-standing practice.
Kennelly said inspectors reviewed 4 years of Sysco records and interviewed dozens of Sysco employees. They found this was a practice that extended back for years and was widespread.
I know that the agencies and my fellow state agencies and the federal agencies were looking into it, but I don't know where their individual investigations stand.
Turns out they didn't go very far. In an email, the U.S. Department of Agriculture said there is no current open investigation at this time. However, we will continue to monitor the issue. Canadian health officials told us when they looked into the issue last September, there was no indication that Sysco drop sites had been associated with unsafe food.
Here, luckily we had some good video from your investigation to show some very demonstrative evidence of what was happening. By the time the other states actually heard about this, the sheds across the country were being shut down.
Are they not able to request records in the same manner that California did?
They can probably request records, but again, not having specific demonstrative evidence of how the sheds were being used. If a shed's been shut down, did it have refrigeration in it at the time or did it not? If you don't have that information because you're not there at the time that the violations are occurring, it's a little bit more difficult to put cases together.
Coming up next, how the multi-million-dollar settlement will be spent to improve food safety and give back to California.
And if it costs Sysco millions to fix a problem, so be it.
To make sure this never happens again.
Somewhere there has to be a message sent. I think they are gambling with public health.
Got a story for NBC Bay Area's investigative unit? Call the tip line at 1-888-996-TIPS or email us at the unit at NBCBayArea.com.
Thanks for joining us for our in-depth investigation into Sysco's dirty secret. I'm Vicky Nguyen. You've seen what we saw, fresh food hidden in outdoor public storage sheds without refrigeration, food that went to restaurants, schools, and hotels. Sysco admitted it was wrong. The company agreed to pay $19.4 million in a landmark consumer settlement. Now, where that money is going and why food safety experts say this was a revealing glimpse into an industry with lax regulation.
I think they are gambling with public health.
Food safety expert John Ryan runs Transcert, a private company that trains workers to safely transport food. He contacted NBC Bay Area after seeing our investigation exposing Sysco's food sheds.
When you see a big company like this violating trust, if I can say it that way, then all of a sudden everyone has to start questioning what's going on in the industry.
What's going on in the industry are sweeping changes set in motion by the Food and Drug Administration.
If you think about what happens when food goes into a transportation arena, it basically becomes invisible. That allows companies to move it just about any way they choose.
In May, the FDA detailed its new public health mandate, the Food Safety Modernization Act. The goal is to prevent risky practices that jeopardize public health. The rules give federal inspectors new authority when it comes to how our food is stored and transported. They are rules that are long overdue, according to Ryan.
The lack of government standards allows people to get away with whatever they want to get away with.
Or if you were talking to public health inspectors, what would you tell them?
I would say, start from literally the trailer and start working your way all the way up, the food chain.
Control, vacuum, packaged
chicken. He's got it out.
The investigation.
We asked California Food Safety Chief Patrick Kennelly where the holes are when it comes to regulation.
We do inspect trucks while we're doing inspections at warehouses and distribution centers. What we don't have people to do is to trail trucks around as they're on their distribution routes to see what they're doing between point A and point B.
But that's about to change. Remember the $19.4 million settlement Sysco agreed to pay? $3 million will go to the state health department's food safety program. It will pay for more inspectors and oversight. Another $1 million will go toward food donations for 58 food banks throughout California. The rest, roughly $15 million, will be paid in penalties to the offices of the 10 district attorneys who brought the lawsuit against Sysco.
People are now paying attention.
Sysco has repeatedly declined our request for an interview, but in a statement after the settlement, company CEO Bill Delaney said, "We accept responsibility for the breakdown in our system in California, and we have taken this opportunity to improve our practices."
If I was a customer, I'd be asking them to deliver my product in a safe, timely manner without any risk to public health or safety.
Meanwhile, for the sources who blew the whistle on Sysco's dirty secret,
This is a freaking storage shed.
Here goes the pork.
Are you storing food in these sheds?
Are we?
None of us would have known about it. I was just shocked.
Someone needs to stand up and say, hey, enough's enough.
People deserve to know what they are providing for their family. And if they're working hard to provide it, they also have the right to know it's coming to them honestly.
satisfaction that their courage made a difference to the millions of people who eat Sysco food every day.
Never be afraid to tell the truth, no matter what.
It's been a year since we first uncovered the sheds used by Sysco Corporation to store fresh food. What started in California spread across the U.S. and Canada and prompted sweeping changes in the policies at Sysco. Our investigation prompted action that improved the safety of food storage and delivery across North America. For a complete timeline and to watch our series of original reports, go to NBCBayArea.com and search Sysco. Thanks for watching. For all of us at NBC Bay Area, I'm Vicky Nguyen. Good night.
Like many of our investigations, this one started with a tip. If you have a story for the investigative unit, call 888-996-TIPS or send an email to the unit at NBCBayArea.com.